Hey, I am C. Trent Rosecrans. I am a senior writer for The Athletic, and he is the number 5 prospect for the Cleveland Indians in 1995. Mr. Danny Graves, the Cincinnati Reds all-time saves leader, and together, like the Wonder Twins, we're the Riverfront Territory here on
That's right.
the Foul Territory Network. First, we're going to get to news, and then we will get our great guest, JJ Cooper. The news isn't real news. It's just kind of like reiterating some of the overreactions that have gone on. The Hunter Green stuff, I think you and I talked about, like just didn't make much sense. And that's kind of what Nick Kroll said too. Like, hey, this doesn't really make much sense. And yeah, so there's that one. And then the Ellie De La Cruz, he was playing with a strain. And then, of course, you see the blowback, like how could they let him play with a strain?
Yeah.
Hey Danny, I'm sorry, he called it not a strain, he said a partial tear, which is what a
Yeah.
strain is. And
Yeah. That's
Danny,
the medical definition. Yeah.
yeah, so like, you how many days did you play without a strain? Probably.
Like 3.
Yeah, so
I was
again,
going to say, like, I played a lot with the partially torn labrum, and like that was never like nobody ever cared because everybody probably had a partially torn labrum that pitched, right?
mm-hmm. Oh, I got one. I have the
Yeah.
MRIs to prove it.
Yeah.
So,
Me too.
and I was not throwing it like you were. So, with that, we can go someone who did can go like actually really old deep with both of us. Um, when he went digging into the prospect handbook with Russell Branyan right there next to you, number 6.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know that if JJ might go back to Russell Branyan in Macon, Georgia as a high schooler. So with that, we're going to bring in executive editor of Baseball America, JJ Cooper, who is also a DGD. It's a damn good dog. One of us.
I am older than Trent, and I was telling Danny earlier, like I remember a fresh-faced, starry-eyed Trent, Rosecrans, freshman who was, already driven and wanted to be the best. I will say that, that was, yeah, you really were.
Really?
It stood out. It stood out. It did. But yeah, I did see Russ Branyan in high school, and I did cover him also. He was amazing in Columbus, amazing home runs, and at the same time, kind of amazing strikeouts at the same time.
When do you remember first hearing of one young Danny Graves? Probably when he was at Miami, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And like we said, it was fun going back and looking through that. It's like I've forgotten about the knee injury. That is something when I was found out, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. So you
Yeah.
were good, not just strains, but you were playing through all kind of ailments from even before you became a pro.
Yeah, that's what happens when you're an athlete, right? I think you just have to deal with those strains or whatever they want to call them these days. But JJ, when you sent that email with the clippings of the old prospect rankings, I was just telling Trent, like we talked about this the other day. I was so close to asking him, did they even have top prospects back then? Because I don't remember any of that stuff. And then I see this in the email, and it's pretty impressive. Like you kind of made my day, man.
I'm glad to make your day, but yeah. So I will give Alan Simpson as the founder of Baseball America. He
Mm-hmm.
deserves all kind of credit for this. I would love to see him in the Hall of Fame one day because he really did. I'm not saying that there was no prospect coverage before that, but when Alan was crazy enough to decide that he was going to found Baseball America magazine in his garage in 1981, and by the way, he was an accountant before that. I don't know why he thought that he would be able to do this by himself, but he was crazy enough to do it. And 1983 is the first team top 10 prospect list. And I have never been able to find an example. I'm not saying that you couldn't find in the back of the street in Smith's, like, here are some names to know or things like that. But no one, I don't believe, had ever systematically said, hey, we're going to look at every major league organization and tell you who the best players are. And the great thing about that in the 80s was the farm directors, the managers, the scouts,
Yeah.
everyone was like, someone's paying attention to us. So the information that Alan was able to get was truly remarkable. Like you look back in those old issues, like the 1983 draft, he had to produce that like weeks before the draft. He's like, here's going to be the number 1 pick. This is going to be the number 2. This is going to be the number 3. This is going to be number 4, all the way through. Cause it's like, everyone's like, someone's actually paying attention to this, because, even when you were pitching in the minors, and again, I was covering minor league baseball in the mid 90s, and it was something where if you weren't there at the game, you might find out about it a month or 2 months later in Baseball America, but that was about it. Like, you could have the craziest thing happen at a minor league game and no one would ever notice. It was that you were operating in this other world kind of until you made the majors. It felt like, I feel like at that time.
Well, I can tell you though, in those minor league days in the mid 90s, we would look forward to when Baseball America would be coming to the clubhouse, because we would want to see what already happened and what was written about what had happened that nobody else was talking about. So it's so impressive that Alan did that, and without the resources that are out there today, amazing.
I remember going to Barnett's newsstand in Athens, Georgia, place that JJ knows very well, and buying in 1994 the Baseball America to get the draft results, because I knew guy I grew up playing with was probably going to get drafted. He had signed with Miami. Jimmy Anderson then was your former teammate in Cincinnati. So yeah.
And 94 was my draft year. So if you still have it, let's check it out.
I don't still have it, Danny.
Oh,
It went back to Russell Hall.
I have the full archives at my house. That's why I was able to find that so easily. I have every issue of Baseball America going back to 1981 sitting in a closet.
Oh my gosh.
That's amazing.
We need to talk after this.
All right. Well, with that, we're going to take a real quick break for our first advertisement, and we will be right back, and hopefully I can get this done right.
Holiday shopping season is here, and we have you covered from head to toe.
Let's talk about an area that's not quite close to the toes. Let's get crazy with this holiday season. Yeah, that's MeUndies I'm spinning around, but the holiday season, now you can get MeUndies with some holiday prints on them.
That's right, ridiculously soft fabric holiday prints, matching holiday prints with your special person, or you can coordinate PJs for the family photo. And right now you can get up to 50% off with the code FOUL. We rock MeUndies. You should too. We're talking over 30 million pairs sold. Knock out all your holiday gifting needs today with MeUndies to get exclusive holiday deals up to, yep, I said it, 50% off. Go to MeUndies.com/foul and enter promo code FOUL. That's MEUNDIES.com/FOUL. Promo code FOUL for up to 50% off.
Well, how about that? We're back.
That's
Danny,
deal,
did you pick out which ones we're going to have for matching undies, MeUndies?
No, but I did write down the code, so I'm going to check it out after and going to pick some for all three of us.
Yeah, tell us the code. What was the code there, Danny?
It is MeUndies.com/foul.
FOUL, not
FOUL.
FOWL.
Correct.
Anywho,
Correct.
with that, JJ has been doing the Reds list for a long, long time. You want to name an obscure Reds minor leaguer? I know just the guy for you, and that is JJ Cooper. I mean, I'm guessing there are people that drafted these guys who don't remember them that JJ does. So, he's seen quite a bit. What was the first year you did the Reds?
The first year I did them, I believe, was 2003. It was a rough list, to be honest. It was fun to watch because I did them all through the 2000s from then on.
Mm-hmm.
And that first list got to number 6, and I was writing up Miguel Perez, the catcher, and it was like the write-up of him was, this guy might be a backup catcher, and that was number 6 on the list. And then by the end of the decade, I was writing up like Todd Frazier at number 6 and saying, this is a big league everyday third baseman, but he's number 6 on this list because ahead of him is Johnny Cueto and Joey Votto and Jay Bruce and guys like that, where it was like
Homer Bailey
really did. And you could watch that team just develop into the team that ended up, I know that it ended up not having as much success as Reds fans wanted, but a team that was a consistent winner, a playoff team. And really, I look back on it and go, like, it had a great little stretch there. It just was shorter and less playoff success than obviously than everyone would want.
Well, here's the latest one. We'll put this up, and that was the wrong one that I hit. There we go. We're learning. So we'll just run through it right here because, audio is part of this too. Sal Stewart won, top prospect in the Reds organization. Alfredo Duno, who could profile to be better than a backup catcher. Rhett Lauder, the right-hander, number 3, after missing all last year, still hadn't qualified, but has a couple wins in the big leagues, so that's good. Shortstop Tyson Lewis, shortstop Steele Hall, right-hander Chase Petty, shortstop Edwin Arroyo, first baseman DH, let's be honest, Cam Collier, outfielder Hector Rodriguez, and right-hander Starlin Torres. So let's just stop. Let's just go to the front and let's start with Sal. How did your mind change about Sal Stewart through this season, going from last year at this time when you're talking to people to today?
It's funny. It's not what he did in September. It's not the fact that he batted cleanup for the Reds in the playoffs in October, which, hey, those are all very important things, very impressive things. But what I would say the key thing is if you go back to last May, before that, Sal Stewart had always been this guy who could really hit. But whenever you talk to scouts about him, whenever you talk to coaches, evaluators, front office officials, it's like, but what he hasn't really shown yet is that ability to turn, like, okay, he's in an advantageous count. He gets a pitch he's looking for. He was really just comfortable kind of flicking that ball oppo, which, hey, it's a great way to start. I would much rather see a hitter who's capable of doing that, who's comfortable using the whole field, than someone who at 18 is just sitting there going, okay, I'm looking for a fastball in that I can yank over the fence. Because the guy who can hit can learn power much more than a guy who doesn't know how to hit, who has power, can learn how to hit. But you get to about May, and all of a sudden, you started seeing homers. And not just homers, but you started seeing home runs to left field. And in like a 6-week stretch, he hit more homers to left field than he had hit in the entirety of his pro career to that point. That's not long after that he got promoted to Double-A, but we're seeing the power now in a way that we did not see before this year.
It's almost like, and when you put it this way, like you did, it's almost like he went from a guy who was Jesse Winker to Joey Votto. Now, I'm not saying they're that level. Just Joey Votto's a Hall of Famer. Jesse Winker's an All-Star. But like Jesse was a guy who was always going to flip it over to the other side. And when Joey, especially when he came up early, the thing about Joey was that oppo field power, where he could wait and make you still pay by driving it to left field.
He has, and again, Sal Stewart has an all-field approach, but now I think that it is a key thing he's unlocked here to where, hey, but if you try to bust him in, because again, he's always been comfortable. If you go away, there are a lot of singles, doubles, and some homers for him out there. But before, if you came in, it was actually a little bit more difficult for him. Now, if you come in, he can punish you. The great thing about that for Sal Stewart is now that he can do that, it leads to pitchers going away from him more, which is something that he's always been very comfortable handling. So I think that when it comes to Sal Stewart as a hitter, I look at this Reds lineup, I look at what the Reds kind of where they were last year. I think he's going to be very important for them in 2026 because we've seen it like when Christian Encarnacion Strand came up. This was a guy who writing up him, but also writing about him during the season. It was like, look, the power's real. He's always hit for average, but let's just acknowledge it's come from that. If a pitch is over his head, if it was bouncing, is a Vladimir Guerrero Senior approach. It was a Vlad Senior approach without Vlad Senior's the only guy I've ever seen who's like, you could, throw it like a cricket ball and he would like, okay, I just hit a homer off of it. It's come back to haunt him a little bit. He's going to have to get more selective. Sal Stewart kind of comes in, I would say, at a very polished. It's hard for me to believe he's not going to be a solid hitter for Cincinnati in 2026. He's probably one of the more, take Ellie out of this because Ellie's the freak of all freaks. But he's one of the more ready and kind of well-rounded, realized hitters that the Reds have produced in quite a while, I would say.
What is his position at the big league level? Like, set in stone. I mean, it says he's first base, third base. He can play second base. Do you see him as just a first baseman or slash DH?
Well, okay. I wrote about this recently over at Baseball America that if he's going to play third long term, he's going to have to add like 2 to 3 grades of arm strength. When I say that he had the worst arm of any third baseman in the major leagues, he was 2 levels below what I would say is kind of the low level arms, like the worst arms that for other guys. Sal Stewart in AAA and the major leagues never threw a ball harder than 82 miles an hour. Like I think it's like 82 miles an hour across the diamond. The average third baseman's average throw is 86. So, and we saw that, like, again, it's one play, but like there was that Miguel Rojas play in the playoffs where he goes to his backhand, and it's not an easy play. That's not a play that most guys make every time, but that is the play where your good third baseman, they love that play. They get there and then it's like, I'm going to show you that I have an absolute cannon here. And they throw him out by 2 steps. Sal can't get the ball on a line from there to first base. I think when you have Cabrian Hayes, who just wins, I mean, got to work on his hitting, obviously. But if you have Cabrian Hayes, who is a Gold Glove and every year is a Gold Glove third baseman, I'm not saying that you won't ever put him out there for a day or two, but it seems illogical to me that you're going to say, hey, Cabrian, you're not playing, especially there should never really be a day other if Cabrian Hayes is mobile enough to play in the field where you say they're both going to be in the lineup and Sal, you're going to be at third and Cabrian, you're going to be playing somewhere else or DHing or whatever. Because again, he's just not, that's not his thing. It's not, you want him, and they need a first baseman. The other thing about this is like, there's a clear opportunity here. Not that they don't have other guys who can play first base, but I would say that's probably his primary position going forward.
Yeah.
You know, here's a guy that you have a little lower. I think if you had the Reds, you know, if we had Nick Kroll or you know, any of the guys from the Reds in here on this, they might have Hector Rodriguez a little bit higher. What kind of player is Hector Rodriguez? They're really, really high on Hector Rodriguez.
Really hit. And he's a guy who obviously was picked up a few years ago in the Mets trade, Tyler Naquin at the deadline. And he's really just shown again, when we talk about aggressiveness, he also is he used to be, when he was an A-ball, he was the most aggressive hitter in the minors. Like your normal swing rate is this guy swing at between 40-45% of all pitches they see. Hector Rodriguez in A-ball was swinging at close to 62% sometimes of pitches he saw. It was like, if you threw it up there, he was going to hit, but he has excellent bat to ball skills to make that work as you would want to see, as he's moved up the ladder, as he's faced more advanced pitchers, they're around the plate more, but he's also realizing, hitting that 2-0 slider or that 2-1 slider off the plate that's down and away might not be the best thing for me. He's laying off some more pitches. He's still hitting for average. I think the question with him is that when I talk to scouts outside the organization, the reason he's kind of where he's slotted there is there is some question about, is this guy going to be an everyday regular or is he going to be more of kind of that role player? And a lot of that comes down to there's some athleticism here, but he's not ever been a great defender in the outfield. I would say like the great thing about now, the things that I can do now that I could not do 15 years ago is dial up. Okay, I'm open up Synergy Sports. I'm going to watch every play, that Hector made in the outfield or significant play. And one thing that really does jump out is when you talk about balls over his head, Hector Rodriguez does not like to go back, especially like when he hits the warning track. If you ever see, a report that Hector Rodriguez crashed, full speed into the wall, I would question whether, was that really Hector Rodriguez? He slows down. If the ball's over his head and he hits the warning track, he's like, I'm going to not hurt myself here. There's things like that he just needs to kind of improve on. Again, he's a left fielder probably. You could probably play him in right if you needed to, but you want to see him be a little bit better as a defender out there to go with the bat. That's kind of where it's a little bit more. And again, I would say the tough thing about when we do a ranking, we also do what we call the BA grades, which tries to
I've done this.
And yes. And so the thing that's kind of tricky about this is when you're doing ordinal rankings, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And someone may think, oh, well, why is this guy 6 and this guy's 2? And it's like, well, really 1's here, 2 and 6 is here. And then like on this list, I would say the top 9 was a clear top 9.
Mm-hmm.
At 10, I could have gone 10 different ways, I feel like, because that's where there's a little bit of another delineation where I felt like, I mean, Tyson Lewis started on this list at 6 and he just kept moving up as I wrote about him, as I talked to people about him. You see things like that, you know, and that's where kind of a guy like Hector Rodriguez, who's a safer bet, ended up moving down a little bit, obviously just out of the 40 man, but I went with the guys who have a little bit more upside, who are a little further away.
Danny, I know you had a guy that you were curious about on this, one of these 10.
Yeah, and not questioning what the number he is, because I don't even want to begin to rank any of these players. But a guy that's intriguing to me, and we saw a little bit of him this year, Chase Petty. What more can we expect from him? Because I feel like a couple years ago he had that dominating year in the minor leagues, and then his numbers are trending the wrong direction, in my opinion. Is there something that he needs to figure out, or what's going on in your opinion with him?
I think he's better than his numbers in 25 reflected. Obviously, if he wasn't, I should not be putting him in the top 10, because let's just be clear, not just his big league numbers, but his AAA numbers were not good this year.
Right.
But when and y'all saw him, when he was in the majors, he's never, I don't think, like, we think back to when he was drafted and it was like, oh, he throws 101 and all that. That's really not the pitcher he is. He's more of kind of that hit your spots, sinker down, multiple pitches, kind of that guy who, if it's all working, I would say that he's going to be a guy who kind of turns over the lineup a couple of times, like more of kind of that mid to back of the rotation starter than that front line Hunter Green type flamethrower. But what we saw this past year was, it's because of that, there's kind of fine margins. And to his credit, in some ways, his pitches have a lot of, like, he has a lot of arm side run, for one. And it seemed like a lot of times, like that Astros start he had in the big leagues, he was missing spots in key counts, right? Like, so he'd be in a 1-1 count, and catcher would set the target, and the pitch would leak. Sometimes it would leak into the zone too much, and he'd catch too much of the zone, hard hit. Sometimes it would, leak out of the zone where it's like, okay, ball 2, ball 3. Those fine margins that he never saw that when he was in the lower levels of the minors. He didn't give up any home runs, and he didn't walk many guys. Yes, as you've gone through it, like as you climb the ladder, those things that worked for you in the lower minors don't work as well. I would say there's a little bit of refinement there. And it's not, again, the thing that stands out about it is it's not like his stuff really backed up. It's not like, oh, he doesn't have major league quality pitches. Command and control, especially command, though, I'd say was a little bit off, not because of anything other than you've got to learn how to harness that movement, right? It could be a weapon for him down the road, but if it's getting you into trouble, you've got to figure out, okay, maybe it's figuring out how to have a little bit less run, like change your grip just a touch, or maybe it's learning how to consistently do it where you feel like, okay, I know that I can run this. It's going to look like it's in on my hands, but in the zone, and then it's going to run off the zone, for a ball, make it really hard to hit. Those kind of things are, I think, still the to-do list for him. The good news for him is I think he goes back into 2026, barring something unexpected. The Reds have rotation depth where he can go back to AAA. They don't need to count on him yet, especially with Rhett Lauder coming back, and say, okay, by mid-season, if there's an opening, he hopefully is ready. I don't think it's day one of the season at this point.
Well, and he's only 22, so
yeah,
I mean that helps.
Yeah, he's still young, prep a high school first round pick. So he's moved pretty quick until this year where it's like, okay, now let's slow it down a little bit.
Yeah. All right. Well, we asked for some questions over on X, and Tyler gave us 2. So I was going to give, Tyler gave us more than that, but I picked out 2 from Tyler. He says, I was excited to see the Reds take Ty Floyd in the draft a couple years ago. Obviously, he's dealt with what's appears to have been a significant injury, though. Does he still have a shot to be a difference maker at the big league level someday? And if so, how quickly do you think?
Not quick, unfortunately, because I did in the top 10 and reporting on that, like that the Reds. The funny thing is the Reds, I think, with their first pick, have really emphasized durability. Chase Burns has really not had any significant injury issues, going back to the start of his high school career. Rhett Lauder, this injury he had this past year, I believe, is the first time that he's really missed a start. going back to like when he was like a 12-year-old. So like they've gone for these guys who have this real durability, but then they've had this second pitcher pick in recent years where they've taken some really top performers from the SEC, Ty Floyd, Hunter Holland, guys like that. And they've had real injury issues with those guys. And Floyd and Holland are both not expected to be back on the mound till mid-season, probably competitive, on the mound. It's been just injury after injury kind of situations where, to answer his question, like if we get to see the Ty Floyd that was there, that we saw at LSU, get back into that form as a pro, yes, 100% that could be an impact guy. But the tricky part of that is we haven't seen that guy as a pro yet, because he's been, I mean, we're talking, the Reds have like 3 of these guys who have like no pro innings almost. You don't know if you're going to see that, right? Like we have to see, 1, can you get back and be healthy? And then 2, is the stuff where it was pre-injury. Right now, I mean, I'm going to rank Ty Floyd in the top 30 when we do the 30 for the handbook, but he's not going to be very high on it, because when you have one injury, okay, it's something where you say pitchers have injuries. When it's multiple years and then it's stretching into a 3rd year, not that it's still, you can't bounce back, but the likelihood of bouncing back gets smaller the more years I would say that you are still struggling to get back on the mound.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, he was probably always going to be a bullpen arm anyway, right?
I mean, we see, like, I think like there was a chance, like if you came out, like, again, in the
Right.
ideal world, he comes out, lights it up and you're like, okay. But I would say, especially also when you look at the construction of this team, again, this is the thing that you were talking about before I came on, like about Hunter Green. It's like, okay, it doesn't make sense to trade Hunter Green because you have him signed. Like, I don't understand, other than like, I get the fascination from like New York media market and all, something like, hey, who are the best pitchers who are on small market teams? We want to trade for them. But I don't get it from the standpoint of like, why would the Reds trade the front of the rotation ace? But I will say, like, I do think that the Reds logically could look at moving a pitcher or 2 this offseason, because that's where they have the depth. Like, their rotation depth is enviable right now.
I just don't know that
any big market teams that would envy this.
Yeah. I just don't know that there's anybody who would give up enough to equal your value of Hunter Green right now.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't trade Hunter Green. I'm saying,
right.
Like, if you look at between the other guys, right? Do you want to trade a Nick Lodolo, an Andrew Abbott, a Brady Singer, who's kind of, coming into the, who's really good, but is in the fight, is coming closer to free agency. Those moves where you say, especially, I look at this Reds team and you'd say right now, like, well, what is their problem? I'd say it's at least 1, if not 2 bats away from where you would want to see it. So like, and Sal Stewart's here, but I don't think that there's another guy who's knocking on the door where you say Hector Rodriguez may be up at some point in 2026. But if Hector Rodriguez arrives, you're not going to say, okay, this is a guy who's batting 3rd in our lineup and transforming the lineup. It's going to be getting a guy like Matt McClain back to being more what he was pre-injury than what he was last year. But I do think it's bringing in, hoping Noelvi Marte has a breakout year in right field, but it probably is also bringing in 1 more outfielder, 1 more bat where you say, okay, this lineup's now with Stewart and this guy 2 players deeper than it was last year, hoping obviously that Elly De La Cruz healthy is more first half Elly De La Cruz than second half, things like that.
Yeah. And then the other one he wanted, basically said, Tyler said, he heard all about Edwin Arroyo being a great defender and big league ready defensively, but he read somebody else saying that the exact opposite. Edwin Arroyo, I think, was most impressive, like how well he bounced back offensively this year, considering the injury that he had. But defensively, where are you, JJ?
I think he's a solid defender. I mean, I've tried to write up every year when I write him up. It's like, this guy's solid. I don't think he's spectacular. It's funny, when we had our Reds chat, about my top 10 at our site, I had all these people asking me, why are you not moving Elly De La Cruz off of shortstop when you project? And I'm like, because I'm not fixated on trying to move the best player on the team off of, the position for, I would say like Steelhall. Now, Steelhall is on this top 10. If you told me that his arrival is around the time that Elly kind of is aging into moving off, because Steelhall's really good defensively, maybe. Edwin Arroyo, who's just added to the 40, fits as kind of like the guy to be in AAA who if you have an injury at the big league level, this guy's going to give you solid at bats. There's not a lot of power. The shoulder injury coming back from it didn't show a ton of power, but it's a pretty wide base. It's a pretty contact oriented approach from both sides. Switch hitter who makes a lot of contact, but I think he can play second. He can play short. He can play third, to where if you had an injury and you said, hey, we need someone for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever, he's an option at multiple positions. That's where he has value. I don't think that he's the guy who defensively is like, hey, we're going to move Ellie off of short because this guy's here and he's a goal, he's a 70 defender. I also don't think he's the bat where you're going to say like, hey, he's our new third baseman or a second baseman, but it's valuable to have a guy in AAA who so many teams don't have a guy. If you have an injury at shortstop and you say, what are we doing now? And it's like, they're putting a guy out there who's really a second baseman, or they're putting a guy out there who's not ready for it. I think Edwin Arroyo could fit that as in, hey, if you need him, he'll be in AAA and he'll be ready to do that at a professional level, is what I would say defensively. So that's like makes the plays, but not makes the Gold Glove plays.
And that's basically what he is to the Reds right now, just an insurance policy, right? I mean, because you're not going to put him in front of any of those guys up there right now.
No, I don't think that there's any scenario where you're saying, now, obviously Matt McClain, 2 years ago was penciled in to be the second baseman all year, and he didn't play it, almost, I don't think he played a game. So you have to have backup plans for that. That's where you are. I do think he is. And that's where I would say also, like, when you look at the Reds, like, we kind of know they're not going to be the team that says, oh, we had an injury, we're going to go out and get a $25 million player at that position. You need to have these kind of plans that when you saw like the 40-man roster protections, that's the kind of thing they did here is they added multiple guys who I think you wouldn't expect any of them to play 400 at-bats in the big leagues this year, but you would also expect multiple of these guys will play in the big leagues this year and are plausible, ready to be called on to fill in as roles.
Yeah, he could fill in the Santiago Espinal role, basically.
Yes. And do it at major league minimum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you brought up protection. They added Hector Rodriguez, Edwin Arroyo. We both talked about both of those guys. Leo Balcazar and Jose Franco. All right. So with those guys off the table, JJ Cooper, Rule 5 guru. I love Rule 5. Or the only person in the world who cares about the Rule 5 draft. JJ Cooper, who was the Reds player most likely to be taken in the Reds in the Rule 5 draft?
Okay, so I'm going to have a really cop-out answer. When they added Balcazar, I think they took the guy off the table who was the one plausible. Like, I think that was a conservative decision, right? If they had not protected Leo Balcazar, I would put it at like a 40-60, whether he had even been taken, because now we did a piece over at Baseball America this week where we looked at it, it's like over 85% of all Rule 5 picks now are pitchers in the 2020s. So like you're not seeing a whole lot of position players taken. But Balcazar could have been a plausible utility man for someone. What we just talked about with Arroyo, that's what you would have been talking about for Balcazar. I think Arroyo in the Reds pecking order is more ready to do that, whereas Balcazar needs probably another year. But with him off the table, there's a couple of injured pitchers that maybe you point, but I don't think the Reds really have a whole lot of risk of being, kind of losing a guy. And especially I don't think if they had someone taken that it's going to stick. I will say though, of the guys they added, like, again, I do think Balcazar was the one where they were being conservative by adding him. He could have maybe gotten through. I'm not surprised, but Jose Franco, they had to protect. I think he 100% would have been taken. And if you ask me, of all the guys they added, Franco's the one who I think will have the biggest impact in 2026. I think they kind of groomed him to kind of fill kind of that Nick Martinez role that we've seen. Like, he went later in the year, they started using him a couple of times in kind of this multi-inning role, and they saw his stuff ticked up. Like, stuff ticked up already, but when he did that, he seemed to really respond to it. So if you told me that Franco ends up in the Reds bullpen for most of the year, he has options. It's always valuable to have a guy who can go up and down. But if you told me that he ended up being a guy who, hey, he's going to be a multi-inning reliever, but not one that you're saying like if he's not a wave the white flag multi-inning reliever. He's a guy who, hey, We didn't get length from our starter today. This guy can give us 2 or 3, turn over the lineup once, and keep our bullpen from getting worn out. But he's also good enough that on another day, if you said you wanted him to pitch the 6th or you want to pitch 7th, you're talking 95 to 97, a little bit wild at times, but not too bad. And also as a starter, might get a little better as a reliever. Slider ticked up because the velo ticked up. He's always known how to pitch. I think he's kind of the sneaky guy. I started with him at number 10 on this list. Like I said, it could have gone a lot of different ways. Got done writing it, and I'm like, I'm saying this guy could be a big league swingman. And while those roles have become more valuable in recent years, I was like, okay, Starlin Torres is a guy who could be a big league starter with plus control. Okay, I'm going to go with that, even if he's further away. But I do think Jose Franco's very much a guy to keep an eye on.
Very good. Very good. Well, JJ, thanks so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Yeah, thanks.
Always great to see you, Trent.
Yeah, you too.
I wish we could just go on and let JJ talk, man.
I do too, but I have a flight to catch. So,
but I will say though, let me one point with this that's also encouraging for Reds fans. I think when you talk about this prospects list, one other thing that stands out is Steele Hall first round pick is on the top 10. There were a number of very interesting draftees who are going to be in that 11 through 20 range. That's the sign of a deep system, right? Like if you're reading the tea leaves when you're reading a Baseball America prospect list, if you're seeing your first pick and your second pick and your third pick of your draft in the top 8, then no, probably it's pretty thin. But when you're not seeing these guys who got money in the top 10, that's not because they're terrible or anything like that. It's because you've got a deeper system where you're like, okay, these guys, even though they're promising, we're going to see a little bit more before they crack the top 10. That was something that if you'd have told me that Mason Neville or Aaron Watson was on this list, it would be not a bad thing at all. Those were premium draft picks who got money. We liked it going into the draft, but I think that is a strong sign for this farm system right now.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much. Go to Baseball America. JJ, anything we should know? What are your plugs or whatever?
Yeah, go to baseballamerica.com right now. By the way, we do not do sales very often, but we have a Black Friday sale coming up. So if you have not subscribed, we do a print mag obviously still, but we also, I would say especially the digital subscription where you get everything that we do. And we work hard. We love it, but there's content all the time. There's so much stuff that you can check out, whether you love college baseball, the draft, prospects, major leagues, international. We're just writing up all the guys who are coming over from Japan. All of it. We love all of it. World Baseball Classic coming up. I cannot wait. All that over at baseballamerica.com.
Well, thanks, JJ. And then, if you guys check that out while you're on the old internets, you've got it all, you got AOL all dialed up like Danny and I did. One of those spare CDs sitting around to put in your computer. Yeah. You subscribe to Baseball America, then also go, maybe please rate or subscribe to Riverfront Territory. We're having a sale too. You can subscribe to this YouTube channel for free. Free. It's code Danny. And then
code is click enter.
And give us a like. I looked at our reviews today, Danny. They are glowing reviews. So everybody loves you because, you're lovable. So go give your love of Danny Graves. They're on the
and your tolerance
iTunes. Give us 5 stars. Riverfront Territory is part of Riverfront Territory. We can edit this out, right? No, I edit, so no. Riverfront Territory is part of the Foul Territory Network. And thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Thank you again, JJ, and thank you, Danny.
Thanks, JJ.
Thank you, guys.